All right. Guys, last time we talked about God is love. God is love is this idea that God for all of eternity has been, how should I say it, been loving us for all of eternity. He created for all of eternity. At a certain level, the creation thought that he is creating us as a gift is just recognizing the nature of God as Trinitarian and then seeing that he's an outflow of that. The love outflows that. And this is more like, what is God doing right now? What are the Father, Son, and Spirit all doing together right now for us? And so that's what we're going for. At a certain level, it's just an extension, just like this. The creation is of God is love. And I'm just describing a particular aspect of it, and that is prayer. Okay? So, this point right here, the Trinity demonstrates prayer, is just what I named this section. And I want you guys to think about this for a second. And now, in Jesus' life, it's easy for us to imagine because Jesus is a man. And for a moment, he is just sitting there praying to the Father. And one of my favorite prayers in the Bible, maybe one of my favorite chapters of the Bible, top 5 chapters in the Bible, is John 17, where he prays for all of the disciples, and then he prays for us. There's literally a line where whoever comes to believe in your name, I pray that you'll keep them, because it's basically a prayer of, will you keep these people, Father, in your presence, in your kingdom, in your life, in your beauty. And what I'm wanting you guys to see here is that the Son is praying to the Father. Now, when Jesus is human, we think of that as relatively like normal. Like, you know what I mean? We think of him leaving the craziness of all the miracles and all the people and all the ministry and going off to a quiet place and going to pray, okay? And but I want you guys to just think about that for a moment, that like, but when I say the definition of prayer, most of us would go something like humans speaking to God or something, or God maybe speaking to humans. We don't think about God speaking to God. Got it there? And so the Trinitarian nature of God, right? The Father, the Son, and the Spirit have been existing for all of eternity, speaking to one another. And even as we established it in the creation note about us. Does that make sense? That speaking in and of itself is a request sometimes, or it might even be a prayer. Let's put this person and adopt them into our family. Got it? Then when you look at it, I'll just say by doing the John 17 prayer, notice I'm using John 16 prayer here, you see that Jesus is praying for the disciples, who would be outright obvious, and for the people that will in future believe in Jesus, that they won't be taken away by the world, that they'll stand firm in the faith, and they'll believe and follow. And right now, what that means to me is this, is that Jesus is still praying for you. Everyone got it? And I think this to me is one of the most powerful things. Number one, I don't think God asks you to do anything he doesn't do himself. Got it? So when he says the Trinity demonstrates prayer, what's good for us? It's good for us to join that conversation. That's basically what's being said. And so the basis of prayer then is not, here, you've got a hard life, therefore you need to like kind of pray out to a God who's out there far away and hope that he's moved by your prayer. It's actually the Trinity asking us to join a conversation that's been going on for all of eternity. And we are given that kind of joy and authority that the Father has to the Son for all of eternity. So just from John 16:23, this is a quote, other than I changed it to we. He basically says, there's a bunch about the speech right before that prayer, John 14 to John 16, is one continual like discussion that the disciples are having with Jesus about like what's going to happen when he leaves. And they don't know why he's leaving or where he's going. They don't understand even yet that he's going to die on the cross. But he basically tells them that prayer is going to be a focal point. And the reason that we have prayer is that we're supposed to make requests in the name of the Father, in the name of the Son. And again, guys, whenever you do name, and I'll probably repeat this point like a dozen times, authority, right? You have the authority of the Son. And I gave that example of like, if I get you in trouble, it's not that big a deal because I don't have that much authority because I'm just a teacher. If Mr. Gerson gets you in trouble, that's a different more trouble because he has more authority. And then if, a police officer gets you in trouble, that's even more authority. And an FBI agent gets you in trouble, that's even more authority. Got it? And then finally, if the Illuminati get you in trouble, no, okay, we'll stop there. But the basic idea is, you want to think, guys, the reason that we are making this request is because we've become united with the Son, become united with Christ. And I can say, because of what Jesus has done, because of the authority, Father, that you believe in Jesus, I'm going to come and step into your presence. And I'm going to make a request, hey, that think about my prayer life. And a lot of it is like that people would come to know Jesus, or people would come to know this deep relationship with God. Okay? As adopted children of God, you guys are given the full authority as the Son to approach him. Okay? And this, guys, to me, should blow our minds. Okay? Because I think about it in just an analogy here. Okay, Galatians 4:4-7 describes how we were once, like basically considered like children or like under the law. It was very hard to approach God. It was very difficult in the sense of the things that are going on there. And now, because of the death and Jesus coming and dying on the cross, he has many sons who have received an inheritance, and they can cry out just like Jesus did at the cross, because remember the other prayer at the cross is Jesus cries out, Abba, Father, that they can cry out, Abba, Father. Okay? And then Matthew 6:9 is the Lord's Prayer going, Our Father in heaven. And I'm going to simply put it this way. You guys, like sons and daughters of God, have full access to God the Father. Okay? As Jesus does. So when I see Jesus praying for somebody to stand firm in the faith or for somebody to continue on, I also am given the joy to pray for someone in such a manner. This is called interceding, okay? And it's basically saying, I'm thinking about the prayers that are normal to my prayer life. I'm praying somebody to come to know Jesus. Think of a difficult relationship or whatever it may be. And as God's son, God totally hears me, not because of anything I've done, not because I'm something special, but because I'm in the Son. I'm united with him. I'm connected with him, and he listens always to the Son, and so he's always going to listen to those that are united to the Son. And this, I hope, guys, that you find is like an encouragement to pray. And I don't mean like that you need to. Well, you should have like a prayer time where you like spend some time devotions or whatever. But I mean, literally, guys. If you go in your heads right now and start ignoring what I'm saying, instead in your head start to talk to God, that he is listening, has the full ability to, and has the full desire to. And since he views you in the gospel this way, right, the God of the universe is hearing you and wants to hear you. Being described as a father in terms of prayer, it almost feels like, my son asked yesterday, if I could go to if I would take him to the Michigan Rose Bowl game, right? Does that make sense? And I would love to fulfill that request. Does that make sense? It doesn't mean I'm going to, because, money. But there is that like, man, that would be so cool to fulfill that request. And you at least get that from the Father. He loves it that the Son wants to get like his dream. As children, he wants to get your dreams and hear them. He wants to hear your hurts, and he wants to be able to hear them. Now, does it mean he says yes to everything? No, but does it mean he wants to take you to the mission? Anyhow, you get the idea. Now, feel that, guys, because everything I'm trying to say right now is active now. Your little prayers that you don't feel anything and you think like you're throwing, I don't know, like prayers into heaven, are actually received by a good Father. Even if they're unagreed with, or they don't come into God's plan or God's will, he still loves to hear them. And I say that to you guys because I think that's the mistake. I can remember people describing to me like, I feel like I'm praying to a brick wall. Nothing happens, nothing answers. And the reality is, in heaven, the whole conversation is in power and in agreement with it. In this sense, if I put it in terms of like a song, I feel like we are harmonizing with all that the Father and the Son and the Spirit are doing. They've been communicating to each other love for all of eternity. When we come in and make our requests known to God, when we come in and speak to him as a father, as a son does to a father, he deeply loves it, even at the base level. And this is on the flip side of this, because the Trinity demonstrates prayer. Now, this, guys, I'm going to note, I'm going to go, favorite passage, I would go Romans 5:8, just if you dig into the depths of it. God demonstrates his love for us while we were still sinners. Christ died for us. And it really is about the whole context of the verses. And I'll explain that when we get to the cross. But this very well may be my second favorite verse. And here's why. Paul is in the middle of like explaining the work of the Spirit. And the Spirit wars against our flesh. The Spirit saves us, right? He gives us new things, but then he wars against our flesh. There's this whole fight going on. And then he answers this question that I absolutely love because it deals with the real world. Okay, he first says, you guys are in a real world and the whole creation is groaning for a new redemption. He puts it this way, for the sons of God to be revealed. Got it? The whole creation is longing for it. So when you look at the world and you see all of its brokenness, whatever that brokenness is, the creation wishes that God would completely 100% restore it. Everyone got it there? And then we assume, well, then is God kind of pulling himself out to creation and then just letting creation crumble in on itself? That's the question I asked, and he goes, no. He basically goes, but in our weaknesses, okay, because we all have weaknesses, we don't know how to pray as we ought. We don't know how to pray that aligns with the will of God. I'll give you an example. It's relatively dramatic, but it is, okay? About 7 years ago, 7 years ago, I had a cousin pass away tragically. Got it? She had cancer. It was about a year process. She got one of those stage 4, I think it was stage 4 cancer in her gut, unoperable. The only thing they could do was like ease her way until she was going to pass away. Got it? And then like you're praying for a miracle, right? You want her to be healed, but she also went through a lot of pain, right? And so we were also praying like, God, take her so she can be with her. She's a Christian. She loves God. But then that means tragically leaving behind 3 kids and a husband, right? And so it's very, very sad, right? All this sort of stuff. And in that moment, I don't know how to pray, right? Like I don't know whether to pray for a miracle or whether to pray for God, just let her go be with her. You got it? And all of us get caught in that dilemma often. I don't think this is abnormal to just me. I think you guys have been caught in that dilemma. You're like looking for a reason. And then that's where you start feeling like, wait, God, why didn't you work this miracle? You're distant. Do you even care? Or God, just take her so that she won't be in pain anymore. Why aren't you answering this so you even care? And we assume that God is distant from it. Well, then comes in the work of the Spirit. And the Spirit, this is Romans 8:27. You guys might have heard Romans 8:28. Okay? Romans 8:27 basically goes like this. The Spirit knows how to pray in our weaknesses with groanings too deep for words. Got it? And so here's what's going on. We don't know how to pray. We don't have a distant God who's no longer there. You have the Spirit of God inside of you who sees the tragedy, sees the brokenness, and just like you groans. Just like all of creation groans. And that's a deep, inaudible, like groanings too deep for words. It's even mentioned there. We don't even understand exactly what he's saying. But you can feel the hurt of the Spirit, and you can feel the emotion and the passion to bring about like this new world that's coming. Everyone kind of got it there? And so the work of the Spirit inside of us is to like almost, I'll say it this way, groan out the new creation. The next verse, you've probably heard it, goes, God works all things together for the good of those who love them. Okay? Which is a deep promise, but it's put right in the middle of this tragic passage that's also got all the goodness of God into it. Well, what is the goodness of God? We know in the midst of our brokenness and all the things that the Spirit is still groaning alongside of us. So that I'll just put it this way, every pain, every hurt that you guys feel, I want to make a request like, why, God? The Spirit is groaning alongside of us. And I love it. It's just this absolutely beautiful thing. Also realize, guys, that changed the conversation because right now we've used words like love and joy, right? Back and forth. Part of that loving is groaning alongside someone that's mourning or groaning alongside someone that's there. And this is God. He has no problem to walk through with you in a deep sense, those things. And so the Trinitarian nature of God, then going back to this, you see them all praying together and interceding. And so finally, I've mentioned this before, so I don't feel like I need to overly stress it. I mentioned it when we were talking about the incarnation. But right now, guys, Jesus is essentially doing the same thing. I think this is Spirit's walking through you with all of your hurts and brokenness, very personal. So Jesus is walking through you with all of your sin, right? Like, did I just sin? I'm not saved. God, I feel distant from you because I broke your trust. And then the Son is sitting there right now, offering his blood again, interceding for you again, taking your name into the presence of the Father again, up in that heavenly throne room scene. So therefore, we enter into the throne room of grace to find help in the time of need. So whether mourning or whether sinning, I'm going to say confess sin here again. We're not going into there like, hey, God, I sinned again. Cool. You cool with it? I'm cool with it. That's not how it rolls. It's no, I recognize, Jesus, all my sins, past, present, and future, you paid for. I'm going to come in your presence again and confess, like, I agree with you that I shouldn't have done that, but you took the payment of my sin, and you're still praying for me, and you're still inviting me into his presence, and I still want to be in the midst with you there. I feel like I've prayed a prayer like that a lot. Does that make sense? But I would say the trust statement with it. I can remember in college going through Hebrews, learning this point, like just trusting God to go, I'm going to go into the throne room of grace. I'm going to go into the presence of God. I'm going to go where Jesus is interceding me as my for me as my high priest. He's bringing God to man and man to God. I know my sins are totally paid for, so I'm going to step back into his presence, be there. And again, prayer, I think, is probably, maybe other than Bible reading, it's probably the main conduit by which we step into the presence of God. You know, you could debate those two. There's a solid debate for you. Which gets you more in the presence of God, Bible reading or prayer? And then you're all like, worship songs. Anyhow, then none of those things are wrong. Like, I'm just going that this is a dumb debate. Anyhow, all of them are true. All of them bring you to the presence of God. Okay. We prayed to the Father in the name of the Son by the power of the Spirit. Okay. When I think of the power of the Spirit, okay, remember that the Spirit is going to be the one that raised Jesus from the dead, is going to raise us from the dead. Okay. That's part of his work. Jesus will not raise you from the dead. The Father will not raise you from the dead. The Spirit will. Right now, he started that process, and that I hear that power in that groan as we walk throughout this earth, feeling like think we're all eventually going to die and we're all eventually going to struggle. We still have the power of God within the Spirit working through us. Then in the name of the Father, we've already talked about, it's through his authority. We come into that presence of the Father, and I like this picture. Again, this is the Full of Eyes picture, which I showed you the website, but this is one of my favorite ones because that sense that like I go there on my own is not there. But anytime I even come up with a dumb little prayer, the Son brings me in front of the Father, and I'm powerfully interacting in heaven where the Father interacts and he hears. Okay? And then prayer is then including the adopted children of God in the heavenly conversation of the Trinity. That's almost how I would describe it. There are times, guys, I don't feel like this is magic or anything, because I feel like I don't think you guys should overthink it, but there's times like I'm literally like, Jesus, Spirit, how are you interacting with those people? What are they groaning about? What are their requests? And I feel like I'm using the biblical language to kind of agree with the Father, the Son, and the Spirit on the conversation they're already having. And to me, that puts us beautifully and powerfully in his presence. All right. Any questions? All right. Shifting gears here. I can